All right, so the most challenging and tedious part of this project is pretty much behind you at this point. You've already created all the parts. You've got your table, you've got your round peg, your triangular peg, and square peg. And now it's time to make an assembly of all these parts together. So there's a couple things you might need to do before we do that. First of all is you want to give actual descriptive names to your parts. And one thing you might notice here is that even though I have 4 parts here, over on my parts menu, it shows 6. And what happened with this is that I actually made 2 separate parts just for the handles or the little pegs that hold the rectangular and the triangular parts. So I can actually combine those together with the other 2 parts pretty easily. And to do that, you click on this Boolean tool right here, and a little menu will pop up, and all you have to do is click on the 2 parts you want to combine. And just like that, it makes a union of 1 part. Click the green arrow, green check, and now you can see that part 3 is now 1 part. So let's do the same thing to the square part. So let's click on Boolean, click on the square and this, and check. And now you're down to 4 complete parts. So depending on how you modeled your parts, you may have more than 1 here. If so, use the Boolean Boolean tool to combine them. Okay, so let's rename these parts now. So I'm going to right click, rename. This first one here is the table. And then part 2 is the round peg. And part 3 is the triangular peg. Just call it triangle peg. And then the last one is the square peg. And I made a little typo here, so I can fix that real quick. All right. So now we have everything named, and that's great. So let's do our assembly. And it's as simple as clicking on the assembly tab here. When you do that, you'll notice there's nothing here, and that's because we haven't inserted any parts. So let's do that now. So insert, and it'll go to your part studio, which is what you want. It may say generating a preview. Give it a few seconds, and it'll get that done. So I'm going to start with the table. I'm going to set that here. It really doesn't matter, just as long as it's in your picture. We will put our round peg. We will put our square peg. And we will put our triangular peg. All right. And then hit the green check. Okay. So we've got everything in there. That's great. You notice they're not all on the same level. That's because of how we built them in the parts studio. But what we do want to do is start mating this to the table. So I'm actually going to go back to isometric just to kind of get myself back in position. And I'm going to do these one at a time. When you mate parts to other parts, you are creating kind of like a permanent bond in the assembly itself. Okay, and that just kind of keeps them in position. So one of the first things I want to do is I want to click on my table here, and then I want to right click on it and choose fix. That will make sure that the table can no longer move around. Okay, you'll see what I mean as soon as we start mating these parts. Okay, so let's start with the round peg. And since that is round and that this is round, I am actually going to choose this tool right here, the slider mate. So if you click on that, hover around the top of the peg until you see you are on the center of it, and then click. Then go over to the circular area here and hover around that as well until you get to the top, and then click. And you can see it moves the round peg over to the table. Okay, and click the check mark. All right, so obviously it set it down into the table, which is not what I want. So I'm going to actually click on it and just move my mouse to move it up. So I can move it up and down. Okay, the program allows you to do that, but I don't want it to be able to slide into the table like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it up like that a little bit, and then I'm going to look at the bottom side of this peg, and I am going to I need to move that up again. All right, so I'm going to go now to the Planar Mate. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to click just on this, the middle of this underside. Click once, and then I'm going to rotate down, and I'm going to click the top of the table. Okay, and don't worry that the bolt moves off to the side. As soon as you press this check mark, it'll move back in spot. And now, as you see, when I move my mouse on it, I can no longer lift it up. Okay. The mate allows it so that once you put it in place, it will just sit in that center spot, and that's exactly where you want it. Okay, so let's move on to, let's do our square peg. And this time I am going to choose a mate peg right from the beginning. So Planar Mate, let's click here. And I'm going to kind of turn things around and click here. All right, and it pops it into place. So that's good. Now the problem is I can move this. And obviously you shouldn't be able to move it into the table like that. It stays on this back piece, but it allows me to move it side to side, which I don't want. Okay, so I'm going to move it off to the side a little bit just to give me a little opening here. Click on the Planar Mate. I'm going to click on the side here, and I am going to rotate my table and click on, I might have to zoom in here. Yep, click there, and then the green check mark, and you'll notice now that it is sitting off right into that corner. I'm not really worried about the little gap here. In real life, we do that because we don't want the peg to get stuck in the hole, so we made the peg a little bit smaller than the opening. But as long as it's showing that the corners match up here, even if there's an opening in the front, that's fine. Because now when I move this peg, I can move it up and down, but I can't move it side to side, and that's just fine with me. Okay, so I'm not even going to worry about moving the peg, in any particular place. Although if you want, you can do a parallel mate, and you can click on the top here, and you can click on the top here, and then hit the check mark, and now it won't move at all. It just stays right in place. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the triangular mate. Let me get back into isometric view so I can see everything. That looks great. All right, so let's click on the Planar Mate. And I'm not going to choose this side. I'm going to actually choose one of the inside ones, like here. And then I'm going to choose that right there and check mark. Okay, looks great, but you'll see that it can slide around, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to move it a little bit to the side just so I have an opening here, and then go back to the Planar Mate. Choose this side. Let's scroll in so you can see a little bit better. Let me scroll in again. The computer is slowing down because the program's doing a lot right now. There we go. All right, so I'm going to choose the inside here, and then I'm going to turn a little bit and choose this inside. Take your time with this and check mark. Okay, so now just like the square piece, it is sitting in the upper corner, but it is not allowed to move. That's fine that there's a gap around the front and the sides. I don't really mind. Okay, so my computer is really slowed down now. Let's go to isometric. That'll make it easier. All right, one more thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and parallel mate the tops here just so it looks like it's sitting right in the hole. And let's go to parallel mate. We'll choose here and here and check. All right, so that looks great. And somehow this one seems to have lost, I think. Let me do the parallel mate. Try this again. I don't know why it went backwards. And then check mark. There we go. All right, we're all set now. So now that we have this set, let's go ahead, put in an isometric. All our pieces are in the correct spot, which is what we want. So next, let's do a exploded view. So an exploded view allows you to show how the parts can pull in and out. So what I'm going to do is go over here and I'm going to click this bottom tool here, exploded views. All right. And I'm going to add an exploded view. Okay. So now I just pull these to where I want them. So I'm going to pull this one up. Oop, you have to click on it first. Then click the top arrow, which means the Z axis. I need to just click this one, just the red one you want to click. Actually, let's hit escape and try this again. So click on just the red piece and we're going to move it up with the arrow. Let's move it up about there. Okay, that's the first step. Then let's click on the green piece, move that up, and I'm going to have to pan over to get this one. And that will move it up automatically to the same height, and click the check mark right there. All right. So then I can close my exploded view window, and it's basically made an exploded view to show where the pegs go, and then click done. All right. So now you've got that kind of saved in the memory of the computer. We'll use that later when we do our drawing sheet. The last thing we're going to do in this assembly is we're going to make a bill of materials. Sometimes they call that the BOM. Okay. So as soon as my mouse comes back, because it's a little bit slow here, let me go to Isometric to clear things out a bit. And I'm going to click on the BOM table. Okay. The first thing I want to do is get rid of some of these columns because I don't need them. Okay. So let me go to right click, remove column. Right click, remove column, and then I'm going to add a column now, and I'm going to add the name column. Okay, and you can see that it's added the names automatically from what I named them back in the Part Studio, so that's great. So now our bill of material is ready. You can click on the bill of material button again, and it will hide that menu, and you have now completed your assembly. So the next step is going to make our drawing sheet, which is basically going to be our finished CAD product, and that will be in the next video.